Hi, everyone. My name is Katherine Cuyler. I lead user experience research at Spring Health. We're a digital mental health company. And I am thrilled to be the second person on this stage asking you all to close your eyes. So everyone, please go ahead and close your eyes. I saw you actually did it for Kim, so thank you very much. So I'm going to give you two statements and ask you to raise a hand if you agree with it. Statement number one. Methodological rigor is needed to produce valid and reliable findings. Please raise your right hand if you agree with statement number one. Methodological rigor is needed to produce valid and reliable findings. Good. Now if your hand is up, keep it up. Keep it up. I'm going to read the second statement. Statement number two. PMs, designers, and engineers are making decisions about the product every day. If you agree with this, please raise your left hand. PMs, designers, and engineers are making decisions about the product every day. Now, keep your hands up, open your eyes. So, it looks like everyone, well, mostly everyone, agrees that both of these statements are often true. These statements are often thought of as at odds with each other. Research needs rigor, but our teams are making decisions about the product every day, and oftentimes it's not informed by rigorous research. So these are often framed as a but. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about how we turn this but into an and, almost like an ampersand. All right, so what happened? The year was 2024. The research team at Spring Health had finally grown to have a researcher dedicated to our three primary user groups. It's a startup, we're a very lean team, so this was a huge deal. As the research leader, I was ready to sit back and finally prioritize functional optimizations to help the research team make the most possible impact at Spring Health. When all of a sudden, something happened that was out of our control. Right around this time, there was a week-long product training, which was actually pretty great, and I was excited that the research team was included in it. But one symptom of, or byproduct of that product training was that seemingly everyone came out of it wanting to do continuous discovery. That meant that seemingly everyone on the product team wanted to talk to users once a week, and they were looking at us, the research team, as the bottleneck that was getting in their way of doing that. What with our rules and our quality control. Sorry if this is a jump scare. Kim already talked about what continuous discovery is. Here's a refresher. I know that when I first heard about this concept, I was a little bit confused. What's a small research activity? How is it different than research? And at Spring Health, we noticed that internally, our stakeholders were also getting confused, and they were conflating the two, research and discovery. We looked outwards into the industry, and there weren't that many resources clearly defining the difference between these two concepts. In fact, the lack of definitions, along with a terrible macroeconomic job climate, was actually creating a lot of fear and concern for what this concept meant for UX research. So, and I have to say, now that I've seen other people's AI images, you're going to have to excuse me, and I'm clearly a late adopter, but it's fine. So it gets the job done. As a research team, we were faced with multiple paths. We could do nothing. Continuous discovery isn't research, so it's not our problem. We could try to shut it down, just be detractors because we don't actually think that this is the best way to build user empathy within our organization. Or we could seize the opportunity. Folks wanted to learn from users, and that's what we do. So we decided to go down that third path and seize the opportunity because as researchers, we did share this belief with our company, which is that people who make product decisions should get to know the users that they're building for. And as researchers, we were uniquely positioned to help our company channel the momentum of continuous discovery and turn it into an additional tool that could be yielded responsibly. So, what we did. First, we created working definitions. We did this by leveraging shared language. So we used the language that had just been taught to everyone in the product org in that week-long product training. It defined product discovery as rapidly identifying a solution worth building by gathering evidence that the solution is valuable, usable, feasible, and viable, and will achieve the necessary outcome. As you can see, product discovery has a whole bunch of methods included in this definition, or tools in the product discovery toolbox, if you will. Looking a little bit closer, we noticed that some of these product discovery methods were also research methods. So what does that mean? What's the difference? Well, upon further investigation, we identified areas where there's overlap. So for example, literature reviews, user interviews, usability testing. These are all methods that are included in both product discovery and in UX research. We also identified a lot of areas where there's not overlap. So for example, product discovery takes the approach of rapidly experimenting and iterating to find the right answer, whereas UX research takes the approach of using rigorous methods to find the right answer. Ultimately, we decided and determined that while some methods are shared, and they definitely can also share some operational setup, ultimately these are two separate things with distinct purposes. So back to our working definitions. I already went over product discovery, so I'm going to move on to continuous discovery. Continuous discovery is defined as small research-like activities to learn from users as part of your product discovery. So for example, having a user interview every week. UX research, and keep in mind these are not like the definitions of these terms, these are our working definitions to help our stakeholders understand the difference between them. So in contrast, UX research is when there is rigor applied to the method of learning from users to increase confidence in the results. Imagine you're like a PM or a designer and you're using one of our toolkits and you want to kind of quickly understand and contrast the difference between these things. So for example, for UX research, recruiting a minimum of 5 users to assess the usability of your prototype by evaluating task completion. If adjectives to describe continuous discovery are shallow and frequent, adjectives to describe UX research would be deep and infrequent. Once we aligned on working definitions, then we established principles. So these were principles for anyone at Spring Health to use when they were going to be engaging users as part of their product discovery. They are empowered, right-sized, responsible, and transparent. You might be wondering, what does right size mean? Well, once again, we leverage shared language. So this is again from that product training. It describes discovery as not being a process, but it's a set of tools to inform your judgment. It's right-sized based on the risk, and discovery is right-sized based on the necessary levels of confidence. On the research team, we saw this language as a big opportunity to lean into to help our stakeholders understand the difference between something like continuous discovery and UX research, and potentially help them to discern when it was appropriate to use continuous discovery and when it might be more appropriate to use UX research, right size based on risks and the necessary levels of confidence. Finally, we wrapped all of this up in a toolkit. The toolkit included frameworks, resources, worksheets, and just generally information for our stakeholders and teams to use to apply the working definitions and principles in their day-to-day work. So the first one helps teams to identify opportunities to learn from users during product discovery. So with this framework, rather than prescribing exactly when in the discovery, design, and development process the team should learn from users, we instead encourage teams to ask themselves a series of questions throughout design and development, such as, what is the problem that we're trying to solve and why is it happening? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes this is not part of the conversation when people say they want to do research. So asking themselves, what is the problem and why is it happening? What are potential solutions for the problem? Which solution is going to be the most useful and valuable? And can users use the solution for the intended tasks? if a team didn't know the answers to one of these questions, then that might be a good time for them to consider learning from users. So once they wanted to learn from users, they went to this next part of the toolkit. This helps them to right-size their discovery by asking them a series of questions such as, how big is the risk, consequence, or opportunity cost if we build the wrong thing? How many data sources will you triangulate to inform your decision? And what level of confidence do you already have about the solution or the design direction or the user audience? So these scores, they scored themselves for each of these questions, tallied them up, and that generated a score and a recommended action. Research was recommended when they needed a higher level of confidence in the decision that they were trying to inform. Continuous discovery was a good option when it was acceptable for them to have a lower level of confidence. Let's say they were already planning on doing, A/B testing with smaller cohorts of users, or maybe they had already done a ton of research on that topic. So a lower level of confidence was acceptable. So that's what we rolled out to our company. What was the result? The first was that more people are empowered to get to know the users that they're building for. So by helping our colleagues add continuous discovery to our organization's toolbox, we've served this overarching belief that we share with our organization. But we've done so with guardrails or safety features that ensure that non-career researchers are engaging with users responsibly. For example, they must use our HIPAA-compliant tooling. We've created templates for them to use within dScout, and they need to attend training. It's like how safety features on a power tool make the tool more accessible to non-experts. UX researchers, as we all know, are not new to figuring out how to share our tools. Democratization is a conversation that we've all been having for a long time, and it's getting pretty tired. But we're moving towards a future where the sharing could be more bi-directional, as we've heard a little bit about today. So in the age of AI, the roles could soon be reversed if they haven't already, where UX researchers are able to design and code, perhaps with safety features, but it sounds like at LinkedIn they're already doing that. So by seizing the opportunity instead of doing nothing or shutting it down, we capitalize on the momentum and establish UX researchers as thought leaders instead of gatekeepers. By offering tools and helping our colleagues to engage with users, they had a better understanding and respect for what it takes to conduct real research and why research is so valuable when they need confidence in their decisions. So today I talked about how we turn this but into an and to unlock cooperation and ultimately turn a reactive situation into a proactive one. But it's not the only way or even the best way to solve this problem, definitely not. We were very resource constrained. We're a lean team. We needed to move quickly. And I self-identify as someone who has always been more comfortable with democratization than those on the other end of the spectrum. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this today was because when this happened at our org, I just noticed a lack of resources in the industry by researchers about what we should do about the fact that both of these things are true. So I want a debate. What else can we do to flip this from a but to an and? I challenge everyone here to collectively think about this. Let's debate. Let's come up with more research-led ideas and visions for how this should work in the future. So now I'm going to pass it over to Lauren to talk about a totally different way for researchers to be thought leaders by helping their teams to get with the program. Thank you.